All right, great. So to everyone watching this, this is a quick workshop about planning for year 1 and year 2. So I just asked our contestant Lily here how well she knew Evergreen. And I asked if there's two types of offerings, if it's true or false, whether there's two types of offerings for students to take at Evergreen, classes and courses. She said true, turned out to be false. And I was explaining, and it's all good, Lily. You'll get to learn a few things about how we work here. So what's it called? So Evergreen likes to use words that aren't understandable to people outside of Evergreen. Programs and courses are two of those words. They describe things that you can take here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them. So there's a pretty big difference between what they are. When I say programs, I mean one class. So one class that is worth anywhere between 8 and 16 credits that is interdisciplinary. Now, what does interdisciplinary mean? It means it combines a lot of things together, a lot of different topics together. So on the left, you'll see a big Venn diagram showing 3 different topics, physics, economics, and history, that are treated within the same class. They're all part of the same learning experience. Not only that, they can last 1 quarter, 2 quarters, even the entire academic year. So you have no other class except for this one, right? So typically when you're a freshman, you're coming in as a freshman as you are, Lily, and as many of you watching are, or all of you watching are, you will be taking programs to start with. Okay, this is what you start with at Evergreen, taking programs. Also, they're mostly in the weekdays and the daytime. So the other one is courses. They're typically what you would see in a college classroom. They're blocks of time assigned for one topic only. So if you've ever taken a class at SPSCC or a community college, this is what you've seen. This is what a traditional college class is. They're most likely in the evening and the weekends at Evergreen. So that's the big difference. And that picture is kind of to distinguish the two of them. One is a combination. The other one treats it separately, and you build your schedule with blocks of them. Okay? So that's the big difference. Okay, next question. Let me see. Can I move it? Yes. Okay. Next question, true or false? You don't need to take specific general ed requirements, say math, English, and the sciences, to get a Bachelor of Arts from Evergreen. True or false? True. Yes, you're totally right. You only need 180 credits to have a Bachelor of Arts. Bachelor of Science is a little different, and the next presentation I have will touch more up on that. But yes, you don't need any specific requirements. Okay, having that in mind as well. Another true or false question, you need to sign up for at least 16 credits in order to be a full-time Evergreen student. So at least 16 credits, is that true? True or false? See, do we have Lily? Say true? Not quite. You need to sign up for at least 12 to be a full-time student at Evergreen. Now, I just say this number because it's really important for financial aid purposes. If you want to get the most money that you can from what's it called? From whatever financial aid, from wherever it is that you get financial aid, you need to be signed up for at least 12. Okay? That's the magic number. And one last question. So it costs more tuition to take 16 credits than it costs to take 12. True or false? False? Yes, you're totally right. So tuition-wise, it costs the same to take 10 or 18 credits. So it will not cost you more to take 16 as opposed to 12. However, if you get financial aid, if that's all covered, of course you don't have to worry about that. I just want to say that for your peace of mind as well. You don't have to feel like you're charging people more if you're taking 16 as opposed to 12. It will cost the exact same tuition-wise. Okay, so that's just to set a little bit of context as to planning for whatever classes that you're going to be taking at Evergreen. So a big question for a lot of students is, what exactly do you do after, okay, so you're coming to college, you're excited to start. What exactly are you supposed to do now, right? How exactly do you plan for this first year let alone for all the other years that you're going to be in college. Okay, so I wanted to start with some with a big picture. As you can tell, it is a big picture. It takes up almost the entire screen. And what's it called? What I'm going to focus on is these 2 years, right? So this presentation is really about the first two. I'm not going to focus on the third and fourth year because that's more down the line. I'm going to touch upon it, but I'm not going to say exactly what that's going to look like. So if you notice there on the picture, it says that the first year, it has things like study broadly, discover and explore new fields, strengthen key academic skills, and connect with people with the college. Okay, so none of this says figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life, right? None of this says commit to a particular way of study, a particular path of study, commit to a particular career, or commit to anything really. Um, and then the second year, it says begin focusing, identify areas of interest, intermediate level coursework, and are you on the right path? So this one is a little bit more blurry and a bit more nebulous, you know, and I'm going to talk about this a little more after. Did I not put it here? Okay, yes, I wanted to talk about it myself, and also Riva and Sebastian, I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit more about what you did in your first couple years of college, to set like kind of a personal what's it called, perspective on this, because because first and second years look a lot different from a lot of people, and really this guide is more in retrospect from people who have gone to college. Really, like college can be a messy kind of path, right? And there's really no right way, but there are ways that can be better than others, right? So for example, so for example, my experience in my first couple years, I went into my undergrad thinking I was going to do computer science. Um, so I took computer science courses and science courses and what's it called, and a math course, right? So when I started, I did that, and by the time I reached my spring quarter my first year, I realized that computer science was not for me. It's not something I really wanted to do, to spend a lot of time on. It's not that I didn't like it necessarily. It's just that the way it worked in my institution, it was too intense for me, and I didn't want to do it. Right? But I took my first year to really explore that, and to try to take things that would meet those. In my case, it would meet that major, such that the second year, um, when I found out about this major called symbolic systems, that's offered at my institution, that where I had already met some of the prerequisites for that major, I decided to focus on that instead. And I kind of settled with it then, right? So after 1 year of exploration, I saw that there was something else for me, and I stuck with it, and that's what ended up defining the rest of my time. But the first year, really, I said I have a hunch, I'm gonna go with it and see where it leads me. And it didn't lead me where I thought it would lead me, but it led me somewhere that I'm really happy it led me with, right? So I gave myself that liberty to explore. So, Riva and Sebastian, I invite you all to also share your experiences in your first couple years at your respective institutions.
So I actually went to Evergreen, and I graduated from a really small town school. I graduated with a class of 41 students, and I got the same spiel that a lot of people get from their guidance counselors. You can be an engineer, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a nurse. That's basically the big four. I didn't want to be like everybody else. I've never wanted to be like anybody else. So I wanted to do something that had to do with writing. I was pretty good at writing, and I took a lot of journalism classes when I was in high school. So I thought maybe I'll be a reporter, maybe I'll be an editor for a daily newspaper. Those, I don't even think they really exist anymore. Um, so I went into my first year. I actually got a bunch of scholarships specifically for journalism. And I went into my first year looking for writing classes. It's not exactly how Evergreen works. So I ended up getting signed up for this class called Madness and Creativity, the Psychological Link. And that was my first class at Evergreen. It was a couple of quarters. And I got to think about what artists, I got to think about art, and I got to think about what made artists, why is it that they had a high proportion of mental illnesses? And I got to think about that quite a bit. And that led me to think that maybe I wanted to be an artist of some kind. And so I started doing a lot of drawing. I took a puppetry class, thinking that maybe if I incorporate that into like performance arts and stuff like that, making puppets, that might be for me. And I was about to go into Foundations of Visual Arts for my second year of college when I met Leonard Schwartz, who is a professor there at Evergreen. He was teaching a class called Prolegomena to a Future Poetics. And I thought, maybe I should take a writing class. If I'm going to go into journalism, maybe I should take a writing class. And I don't know that much about poetry. I didn't feel like I was very good at it, but I liked it. And I was really, really happy and calm whenever I wrote poetry or read it. So I went to an advisor at Evergreen. They told me FOVA is going to be there. Foundations of Visual Art will be there every single year. I could always try next year, but every single one of Leonard's classes change. And so I thought, I'm going to take advantage of this class. And I actually didn't have the best experience with the students in that class, but the work that I read, the content actually made me completely change my mind about journalism. I didn't enjoy writing things that other people wanted me to write. And I don't like, actually, as much as I comment on grammar, I don't like grammar. I feel oppressed by it. And so poetry allowed me to just throw away grammar and actually say something. And that's ever since I've been in poetry, and ended up getting a master's degree in poetics due to taking that class. So very different from where I entered in my mind as wanting to be a journalist and then a visual artist, and then moving toward poetry. So that's kind of how my journey went. But I didn't know when I graduated that it would turn out like this.
Yeah, those are things you can't really plan for too, right? That's all just circumstantial. And also, Schwartz is still around, right? Is he still a faculty?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. All right, Sebastian, how about you?
I did my first and second year in a Catholic university back in Bogota, Colombia, and the kind of the way that we handle undergraduate programs or bachelor's degrees are quite different than here. I mm, so they kind of you kind of pick what you want to be before joining to the college level. So if you want to be a doctor, then you pick the school for doctors. If you're gonna be a teacher, then you pick the school for teachers. So yes, that's exactly what I did. I did join the one of the best schools, I guess. I feel like teaching from John Baptiste Lasalle, who was the first educator in Catholic educator in Latin America. But my first year was um, definitely a connection with languages. I wanted to become a teacher of languages, specifically Romance languages. So I um, engaged with the grammar, the syntaxes, the morphosyntaxes, the semantics, the syntactics, and all this level of languages that phonetics, phonology. I don't know. I'm trying to think all of this. That was my very first year of um, having contact with language in general. Like, why do we speak a language, or where are the languages coming from, and so on and so forth. The second year was more into specifically was more into picking a language and kind of do some research about it. And I did decide to take intermediate level coursework. It's exactly what the slides are showing us right now, and it was definitely a filter. I can call it a filter the way that it was definitely the only the approaches. You want to be a teacher, then this is what you need to learn. So I feel good because I know that it was my pathway. But many of the students that were with me in first year, they weren't on the second. And out of to be honest, out of the 100 people that every year get into that school for that career specifically, only the second year out of that same um, group of people that I joined with, only 47 of them, half of them were interested in continue, working towards the idea of becoming teachers. But yeah, that was my first and second year.
And I
Uh,
think it's also important to say like that that it is possible to change your mind. So at Evergreen, since we don't have majors, it's even easy. It's the easiest thing to change your mind because all you need to do is take different programs. Because there you don't declare a major, you don't go through a department, you don't. So Lily, so you probably don't know what it takes to declare a major, because you're not you've never done it. But it's kind of a it's kind of a process, right? And the fact that Evergreen doesn't have it gives you a lot of liberty to choose, and flexibility to choose. So if at some point during your freshman year you start going a path and then you're like, well, this isn't really the thing that I want to do anymore, you can just switch, right? And that's kind of what this first year, like this first year that you're about to face, is all about. um, from an advising point, from as a former college student, as and taking advice from other former college students, the first year should be a year where you get the freedom to explore. So what exactly do you explore? I mean, what have you been interested in? What have you been wanting to try? What have you wanted to take a class in college that you did, or in high school, that you didn't really get a chance to, right? Or that it wasn't possible to get to have a class in. What kind of just topics, broad topics, do you tend to daydream about? What do you do instead of your homework? Like all of those things, they inform things that you care about, and they inform things that you should probably look into for this coming fall and this coming winter and spring, right? So really the goal for this is to try to find some things to hold on to when you get to your sophomore year, right? Because when you get to your sophomore year, that's when you want to start like really narrowing down on something. So you want to know that you've explored enough that you say, okay, I don't want to go here, but I might want to go here, right? That's really the thing. And because when you get to your sophomore year, that's when you want to really start going deeper into something, right? Because what's it called? Because things, for example, like graduate school, things like the requirements for a career, things like projects that you may want to do while you're at Evergreen. It's important that you start thinking about that in your sophomore year, because when it comes time for you to really like to face like say employers or graduate admissions people, they're gonna all of those things that you're gonna need to accomplish, they take a little bit of time, and they take some planning, right? So whereas your freshman year have basically my permission to explore your heart out, to really get to know what kind of paths are out there for you that might mean something to you. Your sophomore year is the time to start getting a little more serious about what kind of things do you want to commit to, right? So and if you're not sure, then that's when you reach out to us in advising, or where you reach out to your faculty, or where you reach out to Riva or Sebastian, or where you reach out to what's it called, to your family, to people that you know, and ask them, what should I do? What do you think? I'm lost. Do you have any advice? And so on and so forth, right? Because what you want to end up doing is to have a much more focused path on your junior and senior years, where you really are going much deeper, when you're doing projects about it, when you're working with your faculty, when you're doing advanced work, internships, independent learning contracts, building a portfolio, all of that. That should be in your sights for junior and senior year. And sophomore year is kind of the time to start thinking, well, what do I want to commit to for the next 2 years, right? Or the next, while I finish my degree. Because I say next 2 years because that's typically the timeline, but I know stuff happens. People don't always move on the schedule like that. So just acknowledging that, this is typically what I mean. It's like beginning, intermediate phase, and then your advanced years, right? So what about after? Like I said, you want to have that conversation when it comes up. Once it comes up, once you're about to finish your sophomore year, winter, spring of your sophomore year, that's when you want to have conversations about, well, what should I do for the next 2 years? What are those advanced things? What are those internships, ILCs, that I should be doing? What are projects that I can work on? Um, so the hope is that you get to do advanced work, and that you get to spend your time doing things on on what's really meaningful to you, things that you can then talk about after you leave, right? Um, so what I mean by that is not committing to a whole career. So there are things you're going to need to do to be part of a career, and that's exploration that you can do with us. That's exploration that you have, that I gave you some tools to do now, so that you're well informed on what's needed. But when you when you commit to a path of study, when you commit to say like doing advanced work in something, that does not mean you're committing to that for life. You're just committing to that to get your degree, right? So what I mean by that is really that you want to make sure you go deep into something while you're in college. What that's gonna mean for after Evergreen, you might switch a career, you might end up doing something else. That's all of that is you're gonna have to face when you leave Evergreen. But for the purposes of Evergreen, for the purpose of getting your degree, focus on really getting to know something deep, because that's what's gonna make your time worth it. That's what's gonna make it possible for you to talk about things that you've done at Evergreen. Um, so yeah, these next 2 years, when you're a freshman and a sophomore, your big thought should be, what do I want to dedicate time to studying and why? What are those things that I want to spend my junior year and senior years doing, right? So that's kind of what we're focused on. Riva and Sebastian, do you have anything to add to what I've been saying?
Yeah, just a quick thing. On that note, uh, everything has a huge advantage of anybody who is not sure about what exactly to pick or to choose as a pathway of life, as at least academic pathway of life. So it is a huge, huge help that everything allows you to jump, from what you're feeling today, from what you're feeling, what you're gonna feel in tomorrow. And if you're not feeling anything, there is a way also to work on that within the academic frame. Not being kicked out by the on school saying, well, you really don't, you are not really that good. That's exactly what is 99% of the schools that I've been in and that I'm coming from. Like, it's either you are a teacher or you are not a teacher, but there is nothing in between.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So what can you do now, right? As an incoming student with all this time ahead of you, what can you do now, right? So we can put some stuff into action right now. And everyone watching, I mean, I encourage you doing this too. So we can think of 5 things that you want to study or that you want to do or that you want to get involved in now that you're going to be a college student, right? So Lily, have you registered for classes yet? Yes or no? So you haven't registered for classes.
Have I, Reba?
I thought you said you registered for Darcy and Vaughn's class.
Oh yeah, chemistry. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. So that's a whole year, right? Let's see. Because I think that is a whole year. Um, what kind of goals do you have with that? What are you hoping to do after you take that class? So, Lily, I think one of the things that we can definitely talk about, if you haven't talked about it with Riva or Sebastian, is like, what are the things that you're hoping to do? Um, what kind of things do you find interesting and all that? Um, because after you get out of that class, you're gonna have to make the same decision, because I think it lasts a whole year. So you're gonna be doing some math and chemistry for the entire year, right? Um, yeah. So um, I think while you're taking that class, one of the things that I encourage you to do is to come talk to me, and as well as having more conversation with Riva and Sebastian as to what exactly you're hoping to be able to do with the stuff that you're learning, and also like in the future, what is it that you want? What kind of projects, what kind of things do you want to be doing? Um, so since you already made a decision, then this may not apply to you right now at this moment. Um, but also there's a big caveat here that I put in the slide, is that realistically, oftentimes you can only plan 1 year ahead. So I had to face this too when I was in college, because I would make 4-year plans all the time. Up to my last quarter at Evergreen, or not at Evergreen, at my college, I would have this Excel sheet with all the classes I thought I would be taking, and every quarter they would change because all of those classes might not be available because they were in the catalog, but they weren't available the next year, right? They changed or they had something different. So I was like, well, what do I do now, right? So we in advising, we only know what's going to happen the next year, and then come like February. So next February we'll have the next year's catalog, and that's when we'll know for sure. Well, okay, well, what based on these options, what do you want to do, right? Or what would make sense for you to take, and same for the year after that, and same for the year after that, right? So try to keep that in mind as you look at the catalog, that some of those things may not be available, but it's still good to look at the catalog in case you haven't gone, you need an idea of what might be available for you. So we already did in the catalog. So how can I keep track of all this? Well, we have a degree planning guide, and I send that to Riva, and I'm going to share it in a sec so that you can see it. So let me see. So this is part of something called the new student handbook, which is not yet ready for this coming year, but this is from last year. So this degree planning guide is basically how exactly do you see spending your time the next 4 years, right? And I mean, you can just keep this and keep updating it so that you can keep track of what you've taken already and what you're planning to take the next year, right? So this first year where you're exploring, we're just gonna put chemistry counts because that's what you got. Now the thing is, if it turns out that chemistry counts doesn't match what you want or what you need, and you want to switch, we can talk about the switch come fall, and we can rewrite this so that winter and spring looks different. But it all depends on how exactly this fits your needs, and how exactly you're connecting with it, right? So I guess I'm saying this as an invitation to anyone watching, and also to you, Lily, so you can connect with me, and again, I'll be reaching out to all of you, um, because you're part of the people, you're part of the students that I have to reach out to, that I want to reach out to, right? So that's the guide. And then one of the other things is, I want to make sure you all know that, and I want to make sure, Riva, also we have a video, a recorded webinar about how to register and look at the catalog. I don't know if I told you that, Riva. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat. So it's just a YouTube video on how to look at the catalog and how to register. So feel free to watch this at your own time, but also, Riva, feel free to draw from this, for any future conversation with a student. So that link is gonna show you how to register. So even if you don't need to do it now, make sure you know how to do it for later. So, and also how to look at the catalog. Okay. So there's that. And I think that is all that I had. So let me see. Can y'all see the screen still? Okay. All right. Does it show my contact info? No? Okay. That's because it's being done. So once again, let me see. Share screen. Does it show the, is it moving through the, no? Okay, well, either way, give me your questions. There's the, is it sharing my PowerPoint at least? Yes, right? Okay,
Yes.
there's my contact info. So once again, you can call, well, actually, let me revise this. So that's my work cell. Feel free to text me or email me. So there you go. It's recorded so y'all can see it. Okay, there it is. So questions or concerns at this point?
Do you have any questions about what your first year is going to look like, Lily? Or how to plan for your second year when you need to do things?
No.
I guess I kind of have a question on your behalf that maybe you might not have thought about yet. If that's an all-year class, does she have to register each quarter for the
No.
same class, or is it automatic?
It's automatic. So if you want to change, it's possible. If you want to change program, it's possible. But if you don't, then you can just cruise through the whole year.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that was a big question I had for you, Lily. Well, maybe another question, just in case Lily wants to get a Bachelor of Science, what are the classes that she would need to focus on in her first 2 years if that's what she wanted to get?
It depends on what science you want to be doing. If you want to be doing, say, like natural sciences with like nature and biology and chemistry, your second year, you want to take integrated natural science.
Okay.
So that's the second, which is another year-long program. Um,
Okay.
if you want to do more physics and math, you take matter and motion, which is another year-long program. Right. So those are kind of the options. Um, and yeah, like one of the things that that you want to try to do as well is get pre-calculus in there as well when you're a natural science student. Um, so calculus is not really like is not necessarily required for biological and chemical work, but for physics and math, it definitely is. So yeah.
Okay, and actually, Lily, one of the instructors that you're going to be working with often teaches calculus and has
Yeah,
calculus.
Vaughn.
Her programs, and it sounds like maybe not this one if chemistry doesn't require it as much, but perhaps.
Yeah,
Uh,
so what's it called? Chemistry counts is I think is college algebra and chemistry. Um, yeah, so the chemistry of chemistry counts won't count for as a prerequisite for the upper division science classes. That's the chemistry from integrated natural science, which I just mentioned, and matter and motion. So those are the ones that's like the college chemistry course. That's a college chemistry program. Um, so, and I'll be talking more about science next week because I'll be talking about how to navigate all that stuff.
okay, cool. Anything that you can think of, Sebastian, while we have Louise here? We have, I guess, a couple more minutes on other students' behalf, like Tony and Jeffrey and Ismail and all those students who can't be here.
Yeah, students who want to transfer, so they want to have a 1 year, and they are looking for different options rather than Evergreen. And is it in terms of FAFSA? So one of the students specifically is asking me, when I receive FAFSA money, I don't know, grants and all this money. What if I decide to take 1 year with Evergreen and just take an year off after that first year at Evergreen? Am I gonna be able to continue on the third year, after that year off, back in classes at Evergreen without any kind of fee or draft fees or whatever?
Yeah, so uh, I would always reach out to financial aid and student accounts with questions about how exactly certain decisions will affect how much money you owe. From my experience, what I've seen is that if students are good, like they know they have all their stuff paid for and they don't owe any money, and then they want to take a year off, that's
Mhm.
called leave of absence, and you can just do that. Um, and you can request that, right? Up to
Okay,
a whole year, you can request to be out without needing to reapply to Evergreen.
right.
Um, so if that's what you choose, then then I don't think there should, if you owe any money, you won't be owing any more money. It's only when you take a class or take a program and you
Fail
fail
it?
it,
Okay.
and you receive money for it, then you have to pay it back. That's what I've seen. And also when you withdraw early. So when you leave the class early, and so if you're taking a class for like 3 weeks and then you leave, then you withdraw, that might affect it. But I would
Thank you.
always defer to financial aid and student accounts for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good. The second question is, so I let's see. I'm trying to word this better.
You can email it to me because I think you need to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Hold on, before we stop the recording, I need to say something for the record. If you try to take a year off, statistically speaking, you are less likely to return, and I will find you and I will talk to you about what that's going to mean for your education, because Upward Bound, you are committing to graduating within 6 years of entering college. I'm going to hold you to that. I will find you, and even if you don't think I can find you, you block me on social media, I have access through the federal government to the clearinghouse, and I can figure out if you're in school, and I will find you if you're not. All right, now we'll stop recording.
Okay, great.